ridiculously excited to engage in a conversation with my guest today because, quite honestly, I want to, or maybe I should say, I hope to get inside the mind of this guy, because
it's a scary place.
He accomplished something. You see how he just hops right in with it. Pause, you're not allowed to talk yet. I'll tell you when. He's accomplished something that was deemed physically impossible. And I think that when you are accomplishing so-called impossible things, it's all about the mind. We'll see what he has to say about that. Maybe he won't agree, but we'll go there. So I really want to know what makes him tick. Sports Illustrated called him one of the top 50 fittest freaks, alongside LeBron James and Conor McGregor. Red Bull declared that when it comes to endurance, he's unstoppable. And Success magazine named him the most enduring man in the world. He lives in Utah now. His name is James Lawrence, and he is better known as the Iron Cowboy. He is husband to Sunny and dad to 5 children. And if you are thinking, this guy sounds so familiar, his story, I feel like I know him. Here's why. He's done countless races, but he is world famous for his 50-50-50. Embrace yourself for this. He did 50 Ironmans in 50 days in 50 states. And in case you've forgotten the distance of an Ironman, it consists of a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.2-mile run. In Lawrence's case, he would have had to complete those distances and then make it to the next state in order to get up and do it all over again the next day for 50 days in a row. His documentary detailed his entire journey. It's called Iron Cowboy. You can find it on Netflix, and you need to watch it for reasons that you will soon understand. So today, I am joined by the one and only James Lawrence, stepping into the inner circle.
Thank you.
We hugged when you walked in the room.
We did. I was forced to hug you. Just kidding.
Listen, this could be an entertaining 45 minutes. I have a feeling it's going to be. I have to begin here. Like, did you invent the concept of wanting more? I mean, seriously.
Well, it's obviously evolved over time, and you can't perceive even the biggest of things until you start to go down a road and have experiences. But I started looking around and it really all started with the economic crash in 2008. We kind of lost everything, and it shifted to the direction that we were going. But I looked around, and I quickly realized that, frankly, people were satisfied with mediocrity, and with how much depression and everything that was happening, everybody's forgotten how to dream. And I was like, I'm not going to fall into that trap. And so I just dreamed as big as I could.
Started with a dream. I just want to go here for a moment before we go back. But are you aware of the impact of your story and your journey? Like, I know you're very humble, but like, let's just go there. Are you aware of it?
Yes and no. I mean, we get glimpses of it. When the documentary hit, we were really aware of the reach and impact that had. What
made you aware? When you say you get glimpses of it, what made you aware?
Well, I don't know what the exact statistic is, but if you receive a message, that means 10 other people were thinking the same thing, or 100 other people, or whatever. And over the course of our journey, and especially recently with the drop of that in our book, hundreds of messages a day.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but like, those are the stats. What did you feel? I want you to go deep on this.
Yeah.
What made you aware that you had impact?
When someone comes up to you after a stage presentation that you think you tanked, and they say the words, "You just changed my life." So that moment, you're like really hyper aware and like, holy cow, what did that just happen? And so when that happens again and again and again, you become aware that you're having a little ripple.
I mean, certainly a ripple effect amongst athletes and people of fitness minds. But you know what I think is really super cool is your impact on families.
Yeah, it's crazy. Without fail, after every presentation, someone will come up to me, or multiple people will say, "Man, that was mind-blowing, but your message about family is what really hit me." And I've done a lot of corporate events, and I've done a lot of sporting events and school events, and working with bureaus now, they're always like, okay, what's your message? What are your pillars? And I'm like, I don't have one. I'm going to share a journey that's going to impact every person in the room, because everybody's on a different part of their own unique journey. And if I come in with like, I'm going to teach you this today, then I'm going to miss a lot of the room. One of the interesting experiences I got to have was I went, and I'm a huge sports fan, and so I got to speak to the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh, God.
And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go into this room, and these are the toughest of the tough. I mean, it's so hard to make the NFL. There's, just so much ego and everything in this room, and deservedly so. I mean, they're just unbelievable. And I just gave my story and shared it with passion and everything that I could, and I was terrified. And afterwards, the coach said to me, he was like, man, that group right there has never been engaged like that for that amount of time. And he said, you weren't trying to teach them anything. You were sharing an experience of your time on the battlefield, and they can relate to that. Even though the field is different, they can relate to that. And so that was one of those moments where I was like, holy cow, I'm just going to keep trying to do what I'm doing.
Well, you said something powerful that plays into what I do, and I encourage people on a daily basis to share their story, because at the end of the day, that's what we have, right?
For sure.
But you know how many people say they're not worthy? Not worthy because they don't have a story. How do you respond to that?
I mean, everybody's on a unique journey. And the reason, I would say, if somebody doesn't have a story or doesn't feel worthy to have a story, they're not showing up with intent.
Okay.
And so you may not have a story, but that's your fault. Yeah.
Right.
And until you start to show up every single day and make an effort, your story may get lost. And you may not have a story, or it's going to be not a great story.
And it's how you write your story.
For sure.
James, take me back to when you were a kid. I mean, were you a dreamer even back then? Because you said that you dared to dream.
Yeah.
So
I was accused of being a dreamer all the time.
Was that a compliment?
To me, absolutely. Now looking back on it, and I've got a little boy now, and he's crazy and all over the place, and we let him be creative. And my mom watches that now as a grandma, and she says, I wish we would have done that with you.
She didn't do that with you?
No, they kind of, and especially there's a difference between being raised in Canada and United States, and there's it's really proper, here in Canada.
Okay, I was waiting.
And growing up in that proper environment, and you have to be quiet and this and that. And the United States is very loud and boisterous. Now that also comes with its problems and negativities and things like that, perceptions and whatnot. But we allow our kids to be expressive, and it's okay that my son will take a bite of food and run around the table and then take another bite and then run around the table and take another bite.
Is it really?
Absolutely.
Because?
That's who he is. And he gets through his dinner, and it's awesome.
But the mess.
No, it's zero mess. And if he makes a mess, he has to clean it up. There's still discipline and structure.
I'm learning from you right now, because I'm wired like your mom. I'm like, dude, you sit down and you eat.
It's so funny. My mom, I came to Calgary about a month ago, and I warned my son. I was like, hey, listen, when you get to another table, you got to sit down and eat your table, and then you're going to have to ask Grandma to be excused from the table when we're done. And dude, he hasn't stopped talking about it. He goes, Mom, I had to ask to be excused from the table. It didn't set in his mind like what was going on. So it's just differences, it's preferences, it's cultures. But like my mom was like, I wish we wouldn't have restrained you so much, because it disabled your creativity. Okay. Back at that age, it
Do you
stopped
remember
your ability
that
to dream.
looking back?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
How did she disable you?
Well, no, just structure and discipline to a level where it's you're not allowing some freedoms to happen and things like that. So just and over time, and I don't know because I'm not in Canada anymore, but there's been a loosening of that with this new generation. And in my opinion, it's gone too far, and it's been loosened too much, especially in the United States. It's causing problems. So there's a happy medium between that, and I think that's what we're experiencing in our family, is that happy medium, to where it's funny because one of the big discussions that we get all the time is parenting, because we have 5 kids.
Oh, well, I was about to go there. So 5 children,
great kids,
and their ages now are?
So Quinn's 10. So we've got 4 girls: Lucy, Lily, Daisy, Dolly, and Quinn. So we've got 16, 15, 14, 12, and 10.
How are the hormones in the house right now?
Some days I'm like, yeah, I'm traveling. Awesome. See you guys on the way back. Cycle that up. Yeah, it's awesome though.
So the 4 girls and then a boy.
4 girls and then a boy. Yeah. So I have 4 teenagers right now.
Oh gosh.
But it's so fun because we have senses of humor, and there's some really key basic things to parenting, and it's love them, communicate them, and apply natural consequences.
Okay, so what are those basics? Tell me about them.
Yeah, love them and let them know that they're valued, and let them know that they're people, and they can be who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Communicate with them. Don't start when they're teenagers. Like we have countless stories of someone who's like, "Oh, my teenager's a nightmare," and then we dive deeper into it, and we're like, "Well, yep, that's your fault because of how you parented them." And trust me, Sonny and I aren't perfect parents. We learn every day. Mm-hmm. Where we've done some things right, and communicating with them at a high level from the beginning. And it was interesting because we've never grounded any of our kids.
Never. So how do you discipline?
They've self-disciplined because of the expectations we set early on.
Okay, and tell us about the expectations. We're learning from you right now. So you set out the parameters.
Like a perfect example is one of our friends in our community. Their high school kid won't go to school, and they're like, "Well, we can't make him go to school." And all my kids are like,
"Whoa!"
And all my kids are like, "No, that's what you do on a Wednesday. You wake up and you go to school because we've set that expectation.
Right.
That's how it's supposed to be." Mm-hmm. And at church we go to Sunday. On Sundays we go to church, and that's the expectation. And so you have to set a precedent expectation, and then you have to be willing to follow through with natural consequences. Right?
Which means in your world, natural consequences are?
So, perfect example. My daughter got a speeding ticket because she had to go to the bathroom. And I said, okay.
That was the excuse? You bought that?
No, that was her current reality.
Okay.
So if that was real or not real, that's what she had.
Okay.
And I know a lot of parents that would have been, you're grounded, can't use the car for 2 weeks, and you're done. And we were like, no, if I take your car away from you, you're not going to pick up your siblings, you're not going to run an errand for us, and we're punishing you for doing something that we've all done. And the natural consequence of this is, look, you now have an option to go fight it in court. You have to pay the ticket. And if the insurance does go up because you lose in court, you're going to have to pay that difference too. That's what a natural consequence is.
Okay.
Because if I'm an adult and I speed, which I have, and get a ticket, which I have, some magic fairy doesn't come take my car away from me and say, you're an idiot. I know I'm an idiot. I shouldn't have been doing that. So why would I do that to my kid?
Yeah.
I would put them down the same consequence pattern that I, as an adult, would do. And I see that through. I make sure that she has to pay that. She has to go to court on her own. She has to fight it. And if that's what she chooses to do, that's a natural consequence.
I like that way of thinking. It's a great approach, but it's a tiny bit selfish because it's serving you as well.
Absolutely. Oh, for sure, 100%.
I mean, you need her to pick up the other kids, right? Or else your day is in disarray.
Yeah, with 5 kids, that's a lot of running around.
Okay, we're talking all about family, and I wanted to go there, but I need to go back and dig into your athletic career. Were you always an athlete? Were you always interested in sports?
Yeah, for sure. No brothers, all sisters. Neither parent has any interest in sports. And I just absolutely gravitated towards it. Loved
What did you play?
Everything, except for hockey.
What?
I know, crazy,
you
right?
You were born in Calgary and raised in Calgary. You weren't a hockey player.
I know. We lived a very modest lifestyle. And because my parents went into it, we weren't a hockey family. And I grew up watching the Flames, hating the Oilers.
Stop it.
Hey, look, you have to understand.
Are we going to go here?
No, I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan now.
Oh.
I'll correct that. I'm a Canadian hockey fan now.
Ooh.
So any Canadian team that makes it deep into the playoffs, I start rooting for. So I was rooting for Winnipeg, I've rooted for Edmonton, I root for Calgary. So
I'm not going to criticize, I get it, because I've been on both sides of the fence, and I also get it because my son isn't a hockey player. He is a big soccer player, so I just had to poke a little bit there.
Yeah, no, for sure, but I remember going to, like, we only had, you guys were spoiled, but we only had one Stanley Cup run. I was 12 years old, 1988, Lanny McDonald, Al McInnes.
The Red Mile.
Yeah, it was amazing. And so I went to the games. I caught a puck in a game.
Did you really?
I got it signed by Al
McInnes.
You
caught a puck?
It was early in the rounds, Chicago and Calgary. It came over the boards, hit my buddy in the face, and I caught it, and he's bleeding ever, and I'm like, yeah! And I kept it.
Do you have the video proof of that?
I don't, but I have the puck, and it is signed by Al McInnes and Mike.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. That's really cool. Anyway, we
Sitting
digress again. Back to you.
Keep digressing,
you weren't a hockey player, but you loved sports.
Love sports.
But triathlon and Ironman was never on your radar until...
Never on my radar till later in life. So in junior high, I just did every sport. just tried out for every team, made every sport, did it all. And I think that's great. I think kids are specializing too much now, too early, instead of getting a lot of experience in a lot of different categories. Two great comparisons of that is Tiger Woods started at a young age and was phenomenal, but then Roger Federer, I think it was Federer, in tennis didn't start till much later in life and played a lot of sports. So you can be a top-level athlete. I just watched an amazing documentary.
Now who's digressing?
It is absolutely me. Such a tragic documentary, and it was so interesting. Dennis Rodman, 30 for 30. Oh my gosh, what an amazing story. Didn't even pick up a basketball till like 18 or 19.
Stop, I did not know this.
Dude, go watch 30 for 30, Dennis Rodman.
All right.
It'll rock you. It's seriously one of the saddest stories ever.
I don't want to talk sad stuff now, but
know.
anyway, I want to ask you this question.
Okay, you ask.
What was it about sport that fed your soul?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just either in you or it's not. You love it or you don't. And I just started playing. And then 7th grade, I started wrestling. 8th grade, 9th grade, did all sports. And then by 10th, I was like, okay, I like volleyball a lot. I like wrestling. We'll do both. And then 11th and 12th grade, I only wrestled. And that was my passion. I wanted to go to the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. And just, I didn't know what I knew now, and discipline and all those things. And got a shoulder injury, looked at that as an excuse because it was too hard, and then I was like,
One of many shoulder injuries.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've got a few.
Okay.
Just love sport, and if you notice, the sports that I love: wrestling, golf, triathlon, individual sports. It's you out there. You can't blame anybody else. It's self-discovery. It's you inside your head, and whether you win or you lose, it's you.
What about if it's a team sport?
Yeah, well, I don't know if we're going to talk about it, but I was just on the largest TV production in TV history last week, and it was the Eco Challenge in Fiji.
Can we pause on that? I'm going to come back to the Eco Challenge, okay?
We will, but you just asked the question, and I'm answering it. It was a team event of 4 individuals,
right.
And it wasn't an individual, and my success and failure was not only reliant on me.
Oh, so how did that feel for you? See, now we're
not
going
going to talk about it. No,
okay,
you
just
can't
tell us
do that.
Yes, I just am doing that. What's the Eco Challenge? I was going to save it for later, but it doesn't have to be linear. Nothing about this interview is linear, even though I like linear. What's the Eco Challenge?
Okay. Eco Challenge is a rebirth of the largest adventure race series that's ever been done. It's a Mark Burnett production. It was his big passion before Survivor and all of social media went crazy. But back then, they didn't have the cameras, the drones, the ability to really film it and showcase what it is. But since then, there's been adventure races. And an adventure race is a navigation race in crazy environments, and you have to navigate through certain checkpoints and use certain modes of modality through those checkpoints.
Okay.
For an example, in Fiji, there was mountain biking, jungle trekking, whitewater rafting, ropes ascending, descending, traversing, stand-up paddleboard, sailing, all of these things, and all map and compass, jungle trekking, that you had to do. The race is 400 miles, and the time cutoff is at 11 and a half days. Now, we're not allowed to say whether we finished, succeeded, failed, whatever, but it's a team event.
All over where?
This was in Fiji.
Okay.
So this
all
was in
took place
Fiji. This one was all in Fiji.
Okay.
And so they drop you at a coordinate to start, and they give you a map and compass. There was 66 teams that started, and they say go. And you have to hit checkpoints, and the winner of the race is whoever crosses the finish line first through all of the tasks and terrain that we had to do. So it's going to be 10 episodes on Amazon Prime, premiering in 2020.
Well, first of all, congratulations. Did you work closely with Mark Burnett?
Yeah, well, I got to meet him. He was super cool. And then,
Is he?
And then Bear Grylls was the host, and that guy's a stud. It was a lot of fun. What was cool about this race was it was 30 countries were represented. And we were one of the teams. Team Iron Cowboy was representing the United States. So it was a lot of fun. All teams are co-ed, so we had 1 girl and 3 guys.
What was the experience like for you being on a team?
Yeah, it was...
Because you've always been solo.
I've always been solo. It gave me a chance to showcase leadership skills and really showcase the principles of mindset and how valuable they are to help individuals get through an experience. Yeah.
But it also opens an interesting door, because when you're thinking in your mind for all those years and you're used to competing solo, you just have to worry about you.
Yeah.
You don't have to lift up other members on the team. So it's a complete mindset shift. Tell me about that.
It's a huge shift, and it's a huge energy drain or distraction. So my preparation was different going into this, and I had the mindset of, okay, I'm going to prepare to a level to hopefully where I can perform and still give that energy to my teammates. And we knew one of the teammates, she had suffered from kind of a mental breakdown and has a disorder and whatnot. And so our challenge was going to be navigating her emotions through the race. And it was a lot of fun for us, because the two other guys on my team, one is one of the wingmen from the 50, and another guy is just a stud. Real solid mentally and a physical beast. So I was really confident in them, and they've worked with me enough that they understand my principles and my core values as far as when it comes to the mental side of things. And so the challenge became helping her navigate the elements and the emotions through that, through our core principles and values. And so it was actually a unique challenge that we got to have.
So I don't even know, does it compare to 50-50-50?
The number one question I got when I was out there by the producers and the staff and everything. And I had to figure out, because I know the answer they wanted. Right?
But how do you really feel?
Oh, there's not even close. And the example that I gave one of the producers was, look, if you give Shaquille O'Neal a pair of ice skates and ask him to perform in the NHL, it's a very different task.
Yes.
He's become very proficient and an expert at basketball. And then, but if you were to ask him to play 10 days in the NHL or 7 weeks, you just can't compare them, because a 7-week physical and mental grind can't even compare or be compared to a 10-day physical and mental grind. Right.
Did you love it?
Loved it. I did. I loved it. It was something different. It was unique. It was we were off the grid. One of the coolest things was we had to turn in our cell phones and no contact to the outside world. And it was amazing. I got in after doing the challenge, and we got our phones, and I was like, man, was my phone this big when I turned it in? And everything just seemed foreign only after 10 days, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
But the number one thing that I realized is we got to go into the back part of Fiji, like where the vacationers don't go there, like the villages and whatnot. And the further we got back, the happier people were.
Wow.
It was unbelievable.
Because they were unplugging, or the people who
they've
live
never,
there
they've never been plugged in.
That's right.
They've never been plugged in. They have nothing, and they were willing to give you everything when you rolled through their villages. It was a really cool experience, and something that I wish everybody could do. One of my big platforms on stage is to do things uncomfortably, to become uncomfortable intentionally.
Yes.
And I asked the question, when was the last time you did something for the first time? And I put on a really hard race in Utah, and basically it's my gift back to people, because I wish more people would. We live in an unbelievable time of comfort and entitlement and all these things, and so to be able to do these challenges and make myself uncomfortable, that's the reason we've been able to see success as a team and reach levels that a lot of people can't reach, is because we intentionally do these things. Fiji was another opportunity to do that and become uncomfortable, and so I love to be able to do that, because I always come out on the backside of these things changed, hopefully improved. I talk about facing fears and becoming the best version of yourself. Beyond that, that's right. And so all of those things are an opportunity, and like I said, we put on a race in Utah, and it's kind of my gift back to try to break you.
But since you've gone there, I want to go here.
You
but
keep
every time,
blaming me for everything.
Yeah, well, there's been a few. You keep going down this road, but I want to close this conversation with this. Every time you keep upping your game, like I began with saying, did you invent the concept of wanting more? Because what more is left?
I've really learned that I'll never top the 50.
Okay.
It's the story that people crave. I have no desire to top the 50. And the reality is it was so organic and so raw, the way that it happened, and the criticism that we took, and just the way that it all happened. I wouldn't change anything. I'll never top that. The number one question I get is, what's next? And after the 50, I rode my bike to the top of Kilimanjaro. I did some of the toughest races in the world. I looked at eco challenges, maybe what was next. And the reality is what's next for me is this. In trying to share our story to influence people to get out of their own headspace. And so my answer to what's next is, what's next doesn't always have to be in the same category. And sometimes you have to be okay with closing a chapter, as you keep criticizing me for not doing, and circling back. I don't know what you said, but
Okay, I'm linear, you're not. Ish.
Right, ish. And so it's okay for me to close that chapter. Now, I like to continue to go do challenges like the Eco Challenge, because it still does push you mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, all those things. But I'll never top a 7-week organic, raw journey that was.
Okay. We've been cycling around the 50-50-50-50
Cycling,
this whole
was that
time.
intentional?
Yes.
Cycling, wow,
yeah,
that's brilliant.
It wasn't the greatest,
Wow,
you know.
see what you did there.
Literally, yeah. So
Neat.
let's go there. Where did the idea come from?
Yeah, so I started with just running with my wife.
And she kicked your butt.
Always, yeah. She's a beast. Sonny's yo mama. Sonny's yo mama. So we got into triathlon together, started just with sprints, had a lot of fun with it, really started to enjoy the community, and then slowly started to push the envelope. 2010, we broke the world record for the most half Ironmans in a year. Did it to raise money for charity.
You say it so nonchalantly, like, yeah, just another, like, wasn't that was cool?
No, it was cool. And here's what's interesting, and what people miss out on is, when I did that, it was the hardest thing I could think of,
right,
and hardest thing I could do. And so it was challenging going through that. But then I gained experience, and I was like, let's do 30 Ironmans in 1 year and through 11 countries and see what that looks and feels like. So we did that, and that was organic, and it was real, and it was the hardest thing I'd ever done. But then when you finish it and you look back on it and you go, I've evolved. Now what's the hardest thing I can think of? And that's when the 50 was born. And I was in a position of where my perspective was different,
mm-hmm,
and I couldn't understand why nobody else could understand why I thought I could do this because of what I had experienced,
yes,
and where I was and the things that I had learned.
Well, you lived it.
I lived it.
Felt it.
Exactly. And that's the beauty, is you have to live it, you have to feel it, you have to experience it in order, like, you can't read a book on how to do 30 Ironmans in a year. You can't read a book on how to do, because people now come to me all the time, I want to do X, you're a leading expert in the industry, I want you to help me do it, this is my experience, and I want to accomplish this goal in 3 months. And I was like, I'm not your guy. Because what you want to do is going to take you 5 years, and then they go, yeah, I'm not willing to put
said
5.
To you.
For sure, and I didn't listen to him. No, my coach didn't. My coach said that to me after the 30, because he still didn't have the experience of doing it.
Okay.
So he still didn't have my perception.
Yes.
Believing in me
Mm-hmm.
is different than. Sorry, you not believing in me is different than me not having the experience and believing in myself.
Agreed. Okay.
Right? So whether that guy believes in himself or not, he just told me what his experience was.
Yes.
And I'm looking backwards, having had the experience, and I feel I'm credible enough to make somewhat of a decision on what it would take to do what you want to do.
What is it about the pain zone that you love?
No, I hate it.
What? You're
terrible.
Constantly in the pain zone.
I love comfort. Like, I chastised a guy on Instagram yesterday because he was like, I'm so cool, I get up at 3:30 a.m. every day and I crush my whatever I'm doing today. I'm like, dude, you're an idiot. I love my 8 to 10 hours of sleep. And let's put into the equation that you're going to die before I am because you're not recovered and your brain's fried. And he's like, well, okay, I'm going to go crush these weights.
James,
Sorry.
2 to 3 hours of sleep during the 50-50-50. I am a good listener. I watched your documentary.
Not a great listener, because amazing things at certain times of your life take great sacrifice. This guy's like, your entire life to achieve your goals and make 7 figures, you have to get blah, blah, blah. No. I understand recovery and what it takes. That was a very unique circumstance to where the sacrifice changes and is communicated with your team during that moment. Like, leading up to the 50, when it was plausible, I'd get as much sleep as I could. I would take naps, crank through it. Now, really close to the 50, sleep started to go like this, because there was more that needed to be done in order to achieve that goal. But I understood July 25th, 2015, once the goal's met, accomplished, done, checked off, siesta time, baby. Right?
Yeah.
That's different. Now my sacrifice changes in what I get to do.
I have to. 5 kids. How the heck were they with you the whole time?
Did you watch the documentary?
Yes, I did. Stop. I'm the one asking the questions, but for real, every single day. And how did you not get distracted? They must have been fighting and all over you. How did you do all this? How did you process
No,
it?
my kids are amazing. They had a blast. It was the funnest summer vacation. My kids are all best friends. And they had the best summer vacation they had. My son, who at the time would have been 5 or 6, didn't even, we were getting close to, because we finished in Utah, so we were getting back close to our home state. So friends or people he recognized were driving to either Montana or Wyoming to support us coming home. Yeah. And only then he was like, huh, are we going home yet? Because he was having so much fun, he didn't realize he was out. Okay. And the my older girls got super engaged with it, and they were part of the Rockstar show, and they were interacting with the people, and you have to be familiar with the story of my daughter who runs the 55K.
Yes, we're not going there
I know,
yet.
you yell at me all the time.
But what do you say to the critics that said you were selfish for doing that? And it was all about you.
Yeah, they have no concept of the dynamics of our family. And so you can't even listen to someone that doesn't have the information to have an opinion.
I appreciate that.
That's
Thank you.
problem.
I'm going to rip that line off of you.
Oh, please do.
Okay, you start day one. What's in your mind? What are you thinking? Well, what is the mindset when you're embarking on that?
Yeah, I talk a lot about belief and conviction. And again, I talk to people that they're going out to do a big task or big journey or big goal. And I'll listen to an interview or a podcast that they're having, and I can hear glimmers of, or just pieces of doubt that they have in the verbiage that they're using. And I'm like, dude's not going to make it. And without fail, they don't. Because you have to have, and it starts with you, it's got to be so bright inside you, and it's got to be burning. The belief and conviction that you have cannot waver. And for us, there wasn't, when people go down a journey or a tunnel, whatever it is you want to call it, when something starts to go wrong, and it becomes hard and difficult, they start looking for excuses and reasons to shift path and back out the back door. Yeah. And we looked at it as opportunity. We knew how hard this was going to be, and my team had the same mindset that I did. We all bought in, and anytime something would happen, it wasn't an excuse or a reason to quit or abandon. It was an opportunity to learn and grow, because we knew, look, the compounding effect of an Ironman a day is ridiculous. You can't put it into words, you can't understand it. And we knew early on, okay, we have to learn right now, because when it gets 20, 25, 30, 35, the ease to quit with the enormity of the problem becomes very easy. And so that you have to be so resolute in those moments.
So I know that you've been interviewed countless times and you tell your story, but take us back during those 50 days. What do you really, really remember? Are there moments that just still, you can still feel them when you close your eyes and you go, what are some of your top feelings that you remember, days that you remember, and why?
It was really, really hard to go back to the 50 for a long time. And it was hard to be on stage. It was hard to tell a story. It was hard to do interviews, because it was traumatic for us. It was traumatic for me. So, and even looking at pictures was hard. And we had to write the book right away because of memory loss. And the interviews had to be so deep to try to piece the 50 together. But because for me and the 2 wingmen and my wife and everybody that was involved in the core of that, every day blended together. And so they were super challenging. And so we had to really start to dissect. I mean, my wife didn't, it was hard for Sunny, because, and there's a lot behind why it was hard.
Can you share it with us?
Yeah, for sure. Leading up to it, I said, okay, we're going to get sponsors. This is going to be taken care of. This is going to be a journey where you can spend time with the kids in the summer and go see something cool every single day with them. And I had brought on a project manager, and he was amazing leading up to it. And then once we got out there, we discovered he doesn't handle fatigue and stress in that moment well, and he, head in sand, disappeared. And Sonny realized, we're in trouble. If this, because this is our goal, this is our dream, if I don't do something now, we're not going to make it. And so she had to like figure out, she wasn't part of the planning process for the most part because she was doing her last bits of schooling to graduate with her psychology degree during that whole preparation phase. And so 5 kids, psychology degree, and then everything it took to get ready for the 50. So when things started to go sideways, like day 6, 7, and 8, she's like, this is my dream and I need to fix it. And so her experience became very tough because she not only had to get cut up to speed, she had to also execute it and make sure the kids were having a great time and make sure that I wasn't dying and all of these things. And so Sunny is the true hero of the story. And to be honest, we're working on a screenplay right now for Hollywood, and it's going to be told from Sunny's perspective, from the true woman power perspective. This doesn't happen without her, and nobody knows that story because everyone's like, the Iron Cowboy did, the Iron Cowboy did. And so I'm hoping that we can get the right script done and produce that movie to share with the world what really happened. Why do you and Sunny work so well? Man, we are so opposites. I was asking you about your podcast stuff because we want to start a podcast called Salads and Sushi. And it's because it's the only 2 things that we agree on and everything else. And so we just want it to be a podcast between her and I having discussions about everything we disagree on and the perspective. So I think, I don't know why we work. I make her have fun, and she's such a fun person, but she loves order. I like her. And I'm a dreamer, and she brings me down, and I bring her up. So I make her do things she doesn't want to do, and then she's always so happy that we did it. Like I'll make her go on a trip or whatnot, and she's like, "But I've got this at home." Mm-hmm. She's linear. I like her even more. You guys should hang out. We should. Come to Utah. I'll have sushi. Yeah. And salad. Perfect. Strike the right balance. Great. What do you love the most about her? Oh, man. Because you said you want the screenplay to reflect really her essence. What is that? Obviously, she's an amazing husband, unbelievable mother. Love everything about her. I think the reason she's successful is because she's so consistent. Like routine is a lot to her, and things just turn into habits. The small things that people don't do, and I think it just makes her an unbelievable everything because she's so disciplined with it. How many years have you been married? 19. 19. Yeah. Okay, we still haven't talked about the 50-50-50. It's okay. So, take me back to really, you're over it. The story of a lifetime that put you on everybody's radar and made people wonder, how did he do it? So, I mean, can you... Truly, it's a story that hasn't been told. Very few people know about this story. I'm serious. In the grand scheme of sports and all this and whatnot, I can appreciate that. And that's why I want it to be told more, because there are massive takeaways. But I still... Not my words. I've been told this is the greatest endurance feat in sporting history that nobody knows about. Well, I'm not going to argue that with you, because I've been telling a lot of people about you the last few days. I appreciate it. And weeks. We're all huge fans of yours, and I agree. I will say that it needs to be told over and over and over and over. I need to go back to that experience. Again, we digress. How did you process that level of pain that was happening in your body, and to get up after a couple of hours and get on your bike, and then you fall asleep, and then you crash, and then you're swimming with one arm? I mean, what's going on in your head? How did you push through? Everybody says, what's your why? Right? And what's your passion? Why are you doing what you're doing? I didn't ask that. No, I know. I said everybody, except for you. You asked it just in a different way. I don't know. Pretty sure you did. So anyway. And in those moments, depending on where you are in your journey, or how big it is, or the enormity of it, that conversation is going to be different in your head in those moments, for your reason to continue going. And my challenge to people is doing something big. Your one why isn't enough, and you have to put a lot of thought and purpose or passion, whatever it is, into why you're doing something. Because when it gets real and you crash on your bike because you've fallen asleep and you're laying on the side of the road and you're only 18 Ironmans into it, you have to have, I call it a bag of whys. You have to have more and more, because you're gonna pull out in your one wine, you're gonna go, whew, that's not enough.
Whew, that one's done.
That's good.
What's
and
next?
Then you got to pull another one out, and another one, and then eventually you've got 5 or 6 of them in your hand, and you're like, okay, that's my purpose. This is my reason.
Okay.
And that's going to allow you to keep going. And so back to your question, my purpose and reason why for continuing was a ever-changing collection of whys and reasons. And I knew on the other side of the 50, there was me getting my life back. There was me learning from the experience when they knocked on my door and took my home away, that would never happen again. And I didn't know which doors would open, and I didn't know which ones I would walk through, but there are no doors if I don't do this. And the sacrifice that I put the kids and Sonny and everybody through is for nothing if I don't figure out how to keep moving and going, right? So in those moments of I'm laying on the side of the road and what's the point, and those conversations you're having in your head that you're losing, you have to be ready. And it's one of the biggest number one questions I ask people when they come to me. I'm like, hey, why are you doing this? What is the reason? And I say your reason needs to be massive, because what you're trying to take on with the experience that you have, there's a disconnect. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to make it to here without knowing what this is.
So that's one of your speaking platforms, is to have a number of whys in your so-called tickle trunk. Yeah. You want to use that,
tickle
right?
Trunk. Reminds me of Tickle Me Elmo.
Oh, no. That goes back to Mr. Dress Up.
Who hates that guy? Nobody.
I have to ask you, there's a few more things I have to ask you about, because they really resonated with me. And the first one is that day 50. When you came, were you in the water and your eyes were like golf balls? Mm. Like, I was watching with my husband, and
they were like golf balls,
and we were all like, do you remember that moment?
Oh, yeah.
Take us there, because I need to understand that, because it haunts me.
Haunts you? Well, neat. Yeah, I mean, that's a real moment, and there's a lot of lessons in that moment of, finish line's not the finish line until you cross the finish line, and you can't let your guard down, and you still have to respect what you've done and where you are and what you have left to do. And arguably I had ridiculous amounts of open water experience and triathlon experience and whatnot, and that was just a culmination of everything. And it was an outside power that was trying to stop me from achieving our goal, because the energy source or world or whatever knows the impact that it was going to have if we made it. And so it's just this moment of like, I'm going to try to stop you in this last moments, and it didn't happen. And we won. We win.
The criticism that you received on social media made me crazy.
Awesome.
And we navigate that. Everybody does who's on any sort of social media platform, that constant people trying to tear you down instead of lift you up. How did you process that? And it's in the middle. It's in the hardest times.
Hardest times when your mind is the weakest, when you're trying to fight, and when your perceptions are skewed. It's tough. But you just have to realize that, and it's one of the most powerful lessons in life that anybody can live is be okay with who you are and what you're doing at the time you're doing it, and somebody else's opinion of your journey doesn't matter. And that's such a hard lesson for kids and adults to learn, because we give so much value and power to other people. And I made a choice to not give them any power. They are the lowest of the lowest that'll never enter the arena. And I have to realize that that's their problem and it's not mine. And I get to control this narrative on my end.
Amen to that 1,000,000 times over. I want to end with this, because it really moved me.
It's ending so soon?
I know.
Let's double it up.
You want to? You want to go an hour and a half?
Whatever.
I'm in. The man who invented the concept of wanting more. I love it. Part 2 coming up after the next adventure or after the whole Eco Challenge airs.
I'll go as long as you want.
Your daughter. That has moved a lot of people and has empowered a lot of people. I know our own trainer that we work with, they go out and they run 5K every night because of you. But watching your daughter, so 2 things, run that final 5K with you brought tears to all of our eyes, and 2, watching and how you framed what your mom was doing. Had her own battle with obesity, but her 5K, as you put it, was like your Ironman. And so, like, how did you process that? What did that mean to you, and how does that resonate with you, knowing that impact you had on her, and she was there for you? That last 5K can be the toughest.
Yeah, I think the biggest message between my daughter's 55Ks, my mom's 5Ks, my 50 Ironmans, is truly that everybody's heart is different, and it's okay. And I think that gives people permission to stop looking at what everybody else is doing and going, I'm not good enough. And hopefully everybody else is looking and going, that's okay. You're giving everything you have. I couldn't expect my mom to do 50 Ironmans. That's ridiculous. I shouldn't expect anybody to, because we've been on different journeys that aren't linear. Is that what you say? And so it's just that's the beauty of it. I have a very special relationship with all my kids, and during that time, Lucy, and tonight I'll talk about it on stage. There's more than one incident with her where, it just really shifted my paradigm. And I think a lot of people that don't have kids or lots of kids are missing out on the lessons that kids can teach us if we allow them to be who they are. At some point in time in our journeys as adults, we've allowed fear into our lives, and we've gotten in our own way, and we've lost innocence. And sometimes the innocence of a child is a blessing, and it removes all of the things that hold us back. And so those lessons were taught to me along the way from Lucy about just believing in yourself and belief in conviction and doing what you say you're going to do and follow through, and I'm going to be here and you need to show up, and all these things that she didn't have this baggage of beliefs that we now have as adults that turn into excuses and entitlement. And so it was just really, really cool. I shared 2 stories from stage, one when she was 9 years old and one she was 12, that just are very impactful and resonates with a lot of people in the experiences that they have. And then the story with my mother is a lot of fun for me to share on stage in the way that I do it. So yeah.
Thank you for explaining that, and for that gift in so many ways, and the gift of your journey and the gift of your story.
Sure.
You've accomplished so much, like more than like any one of us could really dream of in our own minds. But I know you said what's next, but what is left on the list? Like, what's the big dream? Is there one big dream? Because now you're motivational speaking, you're again traveling the world, you're raising your kids. What's the ultimate dream in James Lawrence's head?
I'm really satisfied. If I in the past I've written out dream lists and bucket lists and things, and I've checked them all off. I just want to enjoy the short time that I have with my kids and my family, because I look at it and I'm like, holy cow, I remember holding Lucy as a baby, and now I'm like, she's going to college next year. And then I look at Quinn and I'm like, dang, Quinn's 10. In 8 years, Quinn's gone too. And so like I'm just focused on what I can do to give them the best lives, help guide them, to release them out of the world, knowing my time with them right now is pretty limited.
With that answer, you have validated so many. My own decisions over my life, as I explained, I needed to create something new to be able to live the life that I want to when I left broadcasting and got into podcasting. And so happy I did, because
good for you.
I am able to cross paths with someone like you. And since you shared at the beginning about your why, I will say that my why is to help people discover their voice and use it to share their story with everyone. And I am so glad that you are traveling the world and sharing your story with audiences everywhere. It needs and deserves to be heard. And I will tell you this right now, I'm one of your biggest champions, and I'm going to tell this story and spread it to anyone and everyone that I possibly can. Thank you for making time for the inner circle and for me in your busy life. Thanks. And for really showing up and going there, and for bringing your sense of humor.
Oh, I'm a funny guy too.
Add it to your list of great, amazing talents. You are an unbelievable human being. Thanks for sharing your energy and your spirit with us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.